In this video, I'm going to share with you step by step how to hire a virtual assistant, as well as share with you what kind of tasks I give to my VAs, how I give them tasks. I'm also going to share with you all the different tools I use when working with my virtual assistants and share some tips and tricks I've learned along the way and answer all the most frequently asked questions I get about how to hire a virtual assistant. I'm even going to share with you some footage. I went to Manila, I went to the Philippines to meet my virtual assistant, and I'll share with you some questions I asked to my virtual assistant, as well as show you around the Philippines a little bit, show you a little bit about my travels. Here's everything we're going to be going over in this video, as well as timestamps so you can skip ahead to whatever section is relevant for you. And this is a very important video. I recommend if it's too slow for you, you can always watch it at 2 speed, but I'd watch this video from start to finish so you can get an idea on how to hire a virtual assistant and how to work with a virtual assistant. This is the biggest thing you can do for your business. And the reason is I firmly believe hiring a virtual assistant doesn't just double your productivity, it triples your productivity. Because right away, when you hire an employee, you get an extra 40 hours a week. Because that person is working on top of your 40 hours, they're working 40 hours. But it's more than just that. Because when you hire an assistant, when you hire a virtual assistant or an employee, you start looking at your business differently. You start looking at what tasks do you need to be doing, and you give anything you don't need to be doing to your assistant. But what's gonna happen when you start doing that is you're gonna look at some of the tasks and you're gonna realize that some of the tasks that you've been doing are a waste, because in this scenario, if you're not even willing to give them to your assistant, you're not willing to have someone that costs $2 to $3 an hour do the task, and that's about how much a virtual assistant in the Philippines is gonna cost. So if you're not willing to pay someone $2 to $3 an hour to do a task, the question is, why are you doing it? And the big thing about hiring an employee is it's gonna make you look at your business from a systematic standpoint. And you're gonna stop doing all the boring things. You're gonna have someone else do all the boring things so you can do high leverage things, so you can do creative things, so you can do the things that you're really good at. Because I firmly believe you shouldn't waste your time doing things unless you are really, really good at them. Pay other people to do the boring things that you don't like doing, that you're probably not even that good at doing. And one way I like to look at this is think to yourself, how much is an hour of your time worth? Now, minimum wage in the United States, I think in LA where I am, is like $15, which is ridiculous, right? But if you can work a minimum wage job and make $15 an hour, and you can hire a virtual assistant for, let's say, $3 an hour, which is probably even a little bit expensive, even if that virtual assistant takes 2 hours to do something that would take you 1 hour to do, it's worth the money to pay them. You pay them $6, you go work your minimum wage job, and you'll be at net positive. So in the long run, hiring a virtual assistant makes a lot of sense. Now, for me personally, I value my time extremely highly. I charge $250 for a 1 hour consulting session. So for me, if I hire a virtual assistant, if a virtual assistant can even save me 1 hour of time a week, I'm willing to pay $250 to that VA. Now, obviously, that's not usually how it works. Usually, if I hire a virtual assistant, they save me more than just 1 hour a week, but you see like what I'm saying here. Now, the other thing I wanna point out is treat this video as if you just paid me $250 for a consulting session. Because everything I'm about to share with you is the same exact stuff I've shared with people that have hired me for consulting sessions before, but you're getting it for free. Now, a lot of times when people get stuff for free, they don't value the material. So I hope you treat this like you just spent $250 for it. And of course, share it with other people if you find this video valuable. Now let's talk about what kind of tasks can you give to a virtual assistant? And the answer is almost anything, especially anything that is repetitive or algorithmic. So what do I mean by that? If you find yourself doing something and it's the same thing every single time, for instance, maybe every time you write a blog post, you have to add some photos, you have to do certain formatting, that's something that can be given to a virtual assistant. Maybe it's emailing new clients. Here is actually one of my virtual assistants, what he does on a day-to-day basis.
Edit videos for the YouTube channel, make thumbnails for those videos, managing the VAs and hiring VAs, posting articles on the website, replying to emails from the Effective E-commerce inbox, editing podcasts and posting it on iTunes and on the website.
I also have other VAs that do things like handle social media for me. So I have one person that handles my Instagram. For my main business, I haven't touched my Instagram in a year. And what she does is she finds people to do collaborations with. She'll send out messages. She'll also send out messages and give people free product in exchange for a photo. So she'll find some influencer on Instagram, say, hey, we'll give you a free product. Will you take a photo? The influencer will send the photo to my virtual assistant. My VA will then post that as an image on our Instagram. My VA will also like, comment, and follow other Instagrams, like do all this kind of stuff. I also have assistants that reach out to potential people to be on my podcast, reach out for people to do collaborations with me on YouTube. Basically anything that I don't want to do or that can be like summed up, like you can write out step-by-step instructions on how to do it, I have someone else do that because my time is better spent on high-level things. For instance, like making videos. This is something that I think I'm relatively skilled at. I'm not that skilled at video editing. I think my video editor, when he first started, actually this is a funny story. When my video editor first started, he didn't know how to do any video editing at all. He actually was working for me doing something differently. And I taught him the basics of video editing. I said, okay, start here, end here, throw in some graphics. And over time, now he's a better video editor than I am. And that's an important thing is the people, the virtual assistants in the Philippines or wherever you're hiring an assistant, they're very, very smart people. I think as business owners, we have a tendency to think that, oh, no one is as smart as we are, as no one can do whatever we're doing, and that's just not true. Like obviously there's people that are better than you at just about everything you're doing. Now as a business owner, your job is to do the high level decision making, deciding should we go this direction or should we go this direction, like really big picture thinking, and then give out the orders to all your employees and telling them like what direction you're taking the company. Another question I get a lot is where to hire a virtual assistant from, and my answer is onlinejobs.ph. The reason for this is hiring an assistant in the Philippines is going to be extremely inexpensive. It's going to be about $2 to $3 an hour to hire someone in the Philippines, and that's actually good money for them. Like I've talked to all my virtual assistants about this, and they're very happy with the amount of money they make. In the Philippines, they also speak pretty good English from a young age, like in school and everything. They're taught English, and they actually, I think it's primarily what they speak and write in the school system. Now, their native language obviously is Tagalog, but English, they're amazing at it. For all the different developing countries out there, I'd say the Philippines is one of the best ones. Also, the internet speed in the Philippines is very high. A lot of developing countries, their internet speed isn't that high, it's not that reliable. And I think one of the last reasons why I would recommend going to the Philippines is because from what I've seen, Filipino workers are just very loyal. They're not out to get you, they're not like scammy. Like I've worked with some other different countries, and I'd say that I just have this sense of, in the Philippines, my workers are like really, like we're a team and they're really loyal. And that's very important to me. Now, some other places you can look at are Upwork, Fiverr. I think FreeUp is another one. So Upwork is gonna be more expensive. I haven't had very good success with that. And the thing is, Upwork takes a percentage of all the different, like if you hire someone, they take a percentage of that person's salary, so it's going to be more expensive. With onlinejobs.ph, I think it's $79 a month, and you only need to pay it for that 1 month while you're actually looking for someone. Once you find someone, cancel your subscription. But then you work directly with the person. You pay them directly, like there's no middleman. With Upwork and FreeUp and Fiverr, you have to pay the website itself, like you have to pay Upwork or Fiverr or FreeUp, and then the next step would be that they pay the employee. So there's some extra costs for that. I think Upwork and Fiverr are good if you have a project that needs to get done. So maybe you need a logo designed or you have like a one-time thing. But if you're looking for a repeat employee, then onlinejobs.ph or FreeUp's another option. So with FreeUp, it's more expensive, but they help you find your virtual assistant. So if you are looking for a virtual assistant and you don't want to go through the hassle of doing everything I'm about to explain in this video and trying to find a virtual assistant, FreeUp might be worth it. I've never actually hired anyone from freeup.com because it is a lot more expensive. And if after watching this video, you'll have a formula, you'll have a system on how to hire a virtual assistant. So I don't think you need it. But if you want to guarantee that you're going to get someone really qualified, then that is an option. Now, one other option I didn't mention is Craigslist. You can always hire someone from Craigslist or any of the different online jobs boards. I think, monster.com, wherever it is. It doesn't have to be someone in the Philippines. Now, if you want someone in the Philippines, the options I gave are probably best. But if you want to hire an American or a Canadian or some person, in a different country, then Craigslist or any of the other different like job boards could be a good option. But honestly, in my opinion, unless you need an American to do what you're trying to do, try doing the Philippines first. It's a fifth of the price. And what I've personally found is my Filipino workers have been more loyal, more dedicated than a lot of the American workers I find. A lot of the American workers I've hired have this little bit more of a sense of entitlement, and doesn't seem like they're willing to work for their money quite as much as someone in the Philippines. It doesn't mean as much to them. I think in the Philippines, they value a lot more the job. That's just from my personal experience. Now, obviously, if you want to hire an American, a lot of the different things I'm going to talk about, a lot of the tools, techniques will work for that, but the step-by-step guide is going to be more geared towards hiring virtual assistants in the Philippines. And no matter where you're going to hire your full-time virtual assistant or part-time virtual assistant, there's basically 5 steps for starting. The first step is to sign up for the platform. In this case, sign up for onlinejobs.ph and click the link down below. I put a link down below, and if you want to support this video, if you're getting value out of this, please use my link. It's an affiliate link, so I get a small kickback. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but it helps support me in this channel. So first thing is sign up using the link down below, and I believe they have a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. So if you don't end up liking the service, you can always cancel it and get your money back. The second step is to post your job. So you're gonna post a job on your website, and there's a link down below to my step-by-step guide, and it includes exactly the title I use for my job, the description I use for my job post, like all the different things, step-by-step, everything. And one important thing is when you post your job, make your applicants jump through hoops. So what I mean by this is, first off, have a title that's interesting, enticing, that makes people wanna click on your job post, but then once they get in there and read it, you should have them jump through a few hoops so they can apply for your job. So what I usually like to do is, the first thing is, send me a message, reply to this job post, and change the title to, I wanna work for you, and then in parentheses, I have them put my mom's name. And I give them a little bit of hint on how to find that, but they have to do some research and figure out what my mom's name is. The reason I do this is then I can only open up the message of the people that cared enough, that were dedicated enough, smart enough to be able to jump through that first hoop. This is an element of game theory here. Is like, all right, if they're not willing to go through that little bit of a hoop, then they're probably not gonna be good for my job. The next thing is I tell them to tell me like a few sentences why they would be good for this job, and then I have some other hoops that I make them jump through as well. The thing is, you wanna make them qualify themselves before you even open their message, before you give them any time. The next thing after that is you're gonna wanna go through the candidates that you like and send them a sample job. And now, it's up to you if you wanna pay them for this or not. I usually don't pay them. It's a very simple thing. The sample job that I have them do will take about 20 to 30 minutes. And in the link down below, I have exactly what I give them as the sample task. And it's gonna be things like, take a picture do a screenshot of how fast your internet speed is. Take a picture of how much disk drive you have. Because in the past, I've had a lot of video editors and our Dropbox is pretty big. I wanna know how much storage space they have on their computer. I also will have them do things like, if I'm hiring someone for social media, I'll say, here's a little bit about our company. I want you to come up with 15 hashtags that would be a good fit for my company. Also, I want you to find 5 influencers that we should send free product to. Another question I'll ask is, who are our top 5 competitors? So for my main company, Performance Nut Butter, I ask them, who are our top competitors and why? And this is trying to figure out how smart they are, how much they understand our brand. And if they say competitors that I don't consider like they're in a completely different market, then I know maybe they don't fully understand. But if they give me good reasons why they're our competitors, then I might reevaluate them. Then of the people that do a good job on the sample project, I interview them. And let me just break down how this usually works. Usually if I post a job on onlinejobs.ph, I'll get about 100 applicants, like no joke. Of those 100 people, I'd say only about 70 people follow the first instruction to change the subject line. So that goes down to 70 people. And of the 70 people that change the subject line, maybe only 30 people actually follow through and do exactly what I asked for. Then I send them a sample project to the 30 people, and then maybe only 6 or 7 people actually do the sample project. And then out of those sample projects, maybe like 2 or 3 are actually really good. And the reason I do this is that way I can take 100 applicants and figure out who's hungry for the job, like who actually wants to do it, who's smart enough to do it. And obviously these numbers will vary depending on what position I'm trying to get filled and a bunch of different things. I've had as many as 10 people that completed the sample project and actually did a really good job on it. And then I interview all 10 of those people. And again, if you wanna wait till after you interview them to give them a sample project, you can do that. I very much value my time, so I want to filter out as much people as I can so that I only have people that are really dedicated. And the reason I give the sample project early on is because, in my opinion, if you're not hungry enough for this job to do a 20 to 30 minute sample project, then you're probably not a good fit. And of course, after I interview all the different people, it's time to hire them. Now, one other thing I've been starting to do, and I'm very interested to start doing a little bit more, is giving personality tests to my virtual assistant. And there's the Myers-Briggs personality test, there's the Big Five personality test, there's the Enneagram personality test, the Strength Finder personality test, and a ton more, but those first four are probably the ones that I would most likely be to give my virtual assistant. And again, I'd probably have them at this point do that first and see, are they gonna mesh well with the team? Like, is their personality a good fit for me, for the team? And you wanna find someone that is loyal, you wanna find someone that their values align with your values, and maybe find someone whose their strengths are your weaknesses and your weaknesses are their strengths. That way they can do things that you can't do. Now, early on, I will say, if this is the first assistant you've ever hired, you might wanna find more of a generalist, someone that can do a little bit of everything, someone that's not necessarily a specialist at any one thing. I'm at the point now where I have 4 virtual assistants, and if I hire a new virtual assistant, I want them to be the best at something very narrow. For instance, if I'm gonna hire a virtual assistant, I wanna hire a video editor who's really good at video editing. But in the past, I didn't care so much about that. I just wanted someone that was smart and loyal and was willing to learn new things. And that was Dan, who was one of my first virtual assistants. He's good at a lot of different things. And as I mentioned, when I first hired him, he didn't know how to do video editing, but he was really good at learning new things. He's really good at taking direction. And now he is a better video editor than me, and he edits almost all of my videos. So now I wanna show you step by step with screen recording and everything, how I hired a virtual assistant, what the process looks like. And again, if you wanna skip past this at any point, there are timestamps in the description down below. And after I show you that, I'm gonna show you some tips on how to interview a virtual assistant, as well as answer all the frequently asked questions I get, show you all the different tools I use when working with virtual assistants, and a ton more. As I mentioned, the first step is to put up your job post, and I have a ton of tips on how to do that. So let's cut to a screen share, and I'll show you step by step how to post your job, as well as some tips to do it. The first step to posting your job is you're gonna have to get an account, and as I said, it is paid. I go with the pro account personally. I do have the premium account because I do post a lot, but for most people out there, the pro account is fine. But after you've done that, after you've signed up, you're gonna go to the main part of your account and just click post a job. Now, I created a step-by-step guide on how to hire a virtual assistant. You can get that for free by clicking up over in the corner. And it's basically the document that I follow. So obviously, it has all the different steps and even has a sample job post, which I'm gonna straight up copy for the point of this. So the title is gonna be Excellent English Writer for Social Media Coordination, blah, blah, blah. And then the description will be down below here. And there's some things in my description that I did very much on purpose that I'd recommend you do as well. So you'll notice, obviously I talk about what kind of tasks they're going to be doing, that I am looking for a full-time employee. I also recommend, whenever possible, get a full-time employee. I have not had great success with part-time employees, but if you only need them part-time, then hey, obviously, do that. I mentioned some of the perks, and for me, it's like you can work whenever you want. You can work as much as you want, and I'll pay you the more you work. Flexible vacation, if you need time off, just let me know. Talk about all the different benefits of working with me, because in a job post, it's a two-way street. You don't want to just talk about what you want from them. You want to talk about what you can offer them. So I did a little about me section, and then here is the most critical point. To apply to the job, I say you got to change the subject line, and I want you to change it to I want to work for you, and put the name of my mom, who's also a co-owner of one of my first companies. Then I have some further instructions saying, write a few sentences on why you'd be a good fit for this position. And then I do some little other small things like talk about an article you've written before, come up with the description for this photo from my Instagram. The whole point of this is to filter out people that are just automatically posting or that are bad. I want to make sure that I only spend time contacting people that are a good fit for my job. So that's why I have them jump through all these hoops. For the wage/salary, put whatever you're willing to spend. And remember, for the Philippines, $450 a month is a lot of money. And I put $450 to $750 because I am looking for an excellent English speaker, writer, someone that I don't need to check up on a lot. And for me, that's worth a lot of money. As I mentioned, I do full-time. And then the last thing is you're going to go through all these skills and just check all the different skills you want. For instance, English writing is important to me, so I'm going to check that skill. And I'm going to go through and check all the other skills I want for this position to have. Then just click post job, and from there it's just a waiting game, and you're gonna get a ton of messages in your inbox. So the truth is, after you post your job on onlinejobs.ph or any of the different sites, you're gonna have to wait 24 hours for the messages to come in. Remember, they're on a different time zone, so you're not gonna get the messages right away usually. It's been about 24 hours since I posted my job on onlinejobs.ph. Now I wanna see how many applicants to my jobs, how many messages I've got in the first 24 hours. Since last night, I've gotten 25 messages. So that's 25 people that applied within 24 hours, which is really cool. And what's even better is all these people are pretty qualified because they all followed my directions for the most part. This person, well, yeah, they all pretty much followed my directions and changed the subject line, which means that they're not just spamming, they're not just sending out a ton of applications. So these are 25 people that are pretty decent and followed the directions. Now, some people take what I said a little too literally. They kept the quotation marks in there, which is a little bit of a red flag, but I'll still read their application and see if it makes sense. So at this stage, what I do is I go through and just one by one, read what they wrote, see if they're a good fit. And if they're not a good fit, I delete them. So right off the bat, I know this person, availability 20 hours a week. I'm looking for a full-time person, but I'll message them and see, hey, I'm looking for a full-time person. Are you willing to do it? So now I'll read the messages, see if they're a good fit. And like I said, if they're not a good fit, I delete them. If they are a good fit, I'll send them a message. So I'm going to go through really quickly and read all these messages and see who's a good fit. At this point, I'm left with about 10 applicants. So from the initial 25 or so, there's about 10 people that I actually think are good. A few of them, these two people, I had questions. In their profile, it said that they wanted to work 20 hours a week. I'm looking for someone full time. So I'm not sure if that's a good fit. But at this point, now that I've got it narrowed down to the people I want, I starred the ones that I'm going to message with the next step. What I do is I go over to the How to Hire a Virtual Assistant, the guide that I talked about earlier. You can get for free. There's a link down below. And email the applicants that you like. That's step 3. I'm going to go down here. And I have this new and improved Skype message. And part of what it says to do here is you take this sheet, open it up, and this is going to be so that they can book a time with me. So you'll see. Take the sheet, open it up in Google Docs, and make a copy. And then copy this message. Well, change it up however you need to. Obviously, this message is more for me. And then go over here and you send it. But before you send it, you need to change this link to this link. Let me just change the date, actually. And there's really two parts to this email. One is having them book an interview time. But the other one is this sample project. So I'm giving them a sample project before I interview them. So I'm telling them that I want to interview you. You seem good enough. But then I give them this sample project, which says, please email me at this certain email, take screenshots, do all this different stuff. And basically what it does is it tests them to see if they're going to be a good fit for my company. Now, obviously, if you're doing this sample project on your own, you're going to want to make your own sample project and switch out the link. But for me, this works. So I'm going to go ahead and send this message. Let me just copy it, make sure I have the correct message. Copy it, send. I'm going to send that message to all the different applicants. And that's it. Now I sent all those messages. I should be in the next few days getting sample projects back from these applicants. I should probably get more applicants within the next 24 hours coming in as well. And I'll just do that same process. I'm planning on doing all my interviews on Friday. So by the end of this week, I should know who I'm going to be hiring. So yesterday, Wednesday, I did get a few more applications for the online, virtual assistant position. But honestly, yesterday I didn't have that productive a day, or at least it didn't feel like that to me. I worked on the SOPs because when you hire a new VA, you got to train them. And I don't want to have to keep training new VAs over and over again. So I created a Google Doc with all the steps to do all the different things that we do. Also, so far, 3 people have submitted their sample project. And I'll show you what the sample project looks like. And today's the day I'm doing all the interviews for the VAs. So I'm only going to be interviewing the VAs that actually submitted the sample task that I gave them. And out of, I think, the 15 or so VAs that scheduled an interview, only 6 or so actually submitted the sample project. One of them actually did a really bad job on the sample project, and I'll probably won't even interview that person. I'll probably just email them and let them know, not gonna interview you. But today I'm gonna show you what kind of questions you should ask a VA when interviewing them, and I'll show you some of like my top secret questions. And as always, if you wanna get access to those questions, you can get the VA success pack, VA hiring pack, whatever I call it. I'll put a link up here and down below. But I've got interviews scheduled most of the day today. I got some other tasks that I'm gonna do as well. But I'll show you some snippets of some of the interviews. Question for you. If you could have a conversation with anybody alive or dead, who would it be and why? So where do you see yourself like in 5 years? Like, what do you want to do? Like, what's your goal 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Like, what do you see yourself doing for work? Or do you want to still be working then? Where'd you learn English? I mean, obviously in the school system, there's English, but your English seems to be a little bit better than most people's English. What's your goal in life? Like, really? Now that I'm done with my interviews, it's time to figure out who I want to hire and ultimately hire them. And I'll show you some quick clips of what it's like their first day on the job, and some of my comments on how I like to introduce VAs and start working with them. I'll be doing that Sunday night my time because that's Monday morning their time. Ultimately, I ended up hiring 3 new virtual assistants, but one of them, when I gave him the task, he was a little bit overwhelmed, and really I was unsure if I wanted to hire him anyways, and so he quit basically right away. So I ended up hiring 2 new virtual assistants. One to replace my old VA, which is going to part-time, and the new one like I had wanted to. This entire process has made me realize that I need to work on my SOPs. I need to work on the whole workflow of what happens when I hire a virtual assistant. Overall though, I think hiring these new virtual assistants is going to be one of the best things I could possibly do. I'm really excited. I already have 100 different ideas of all the different tasks I can give these VAs. So I'm excited for that. I recently flew out to the Philippines to meet with my virtual assistants, and I flew out my virtual assistant that's been with me the longest, Dan, to Palawan, which is a beautiful beach city. It's Puerto Princesa specifically is where we went to. And I'm gonna show you a little bit of that city, as well as tell you some of the common questions I ask during interviews. When it comes time to interview your VA, there is a few different questions I recommend asking. What is their internet speed? What part of the Philippines do they live in? This will also tell you how good their internet connection is. In the Philippines, a lot of times the internet will go out. So that's a big question to ask. Some other questions that are obvious are like prior experience, but one of the most important questions I like to ask is if there's anyone throughout history that you can meet, who would it be and why? And the reason for this is I want to see how well the virtual assistants can think on their toes. Some other questions you should ask is, why do they want to work for you? I think a lot of people skip this question, but it's important. Why do they want to do this job for you? Is it something they're passionate about? And a similar related question to that is, what do they want to be doing 5 years from now? Like, what is their 5-year goal? And as much as I hated this question in the corporate world, I now understand why they ask it. It's important to see, does your job offer align with what they want to be doing in the future? Because if it doesn't, they're not going to be as passionate about it. They're not going to be as interested in doing it. Like I think I said before, I do have a complete step-by-step how-to guide up here and down below in the e-commerce success pack. There is step-by-step how to hire a virtual assistant, including all the questions I ask during interviews, all the email templates, job templates, everything I use. And you can get that for free by clicking up here or down below in the e-commerce success pack. Now, some tips for interviewing virtual assistants is 1, always use video chat. You always want to do a video chat via Skype, and there's a few reasons for this. 1, you want to prove that they are who they actually say they are, but more importantly, you want to prove that their internet speed is good, because if they can't even do a video chat, then something's fishy. In my opinion, in general too, the first time you meet with someone, you want to do that video, that face-to-face, so you can get a gut level feeling, is this a good person to hire or not? I usually try to interview all the different applicants on the same day. This just makes it simpler for me, and in the process, I have linked down below. One of the things I'll do is I'll have them schedule themselves. So I'll say, hey, here's the time slot. And part of the reason I do that too is to let them know you're not the only person applying for this job, so take this seriously and please show up on time and all that kind of stuff. Now I want to share with you some of the biggest tips and tricks I've learned with working with virtual assistants and having success. And one of the first things is, once you hire your virtual assistant, you should give them what I call the day one sheet. And this day one sheet, and you can use mine as well, I have the link to that down below. is basically step-by-step, like what should they be doing on their first day? Because a lot of times, you can imagine, like on your first job, it's kind of stressful, it's kind of confusing, like what am I supposed to do? Now, on the first day of working with me, I have very specific things like sign up for LastPass and install it, set up Dropbox, a bunch of other things, and you can check out the sheet down below for all that information. And from day one, you should try to set up standard operating procedures. I have examples of my standard operating procedures, or SOPs, down below. So an SOP is how do you guys do things? So for instance, you're gonna give your VAs tasks. Maybe it's gonna be to edit videos, and you're gonna wanna give step-by-step instructions. So the first thing you do is take the video files and start a new folder, and have your virtual assistant, as you give them tasks, have them write out step by step how to do this. And the reason for this is, if your virtual assistant gets sick or leaves, or you fire them, or for any reason you need to replace them, it's gonna make it very easy for you to replace them. But it also makes their job easier because they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing step by step. And as your organization grows, as you grow as an individual in a company, you're gonna have those standard operating procedures, and it's gonna be very easy. You're not gonna be as worried if one of your assistants gets sick or if something happens like that. Another thing I recommend is doing weekly meetings. So I meet with all my VAs once a week, and we all meet at 5 p.m. PST, which is a good time for them and it's a good time for me, and we all meet together as a team. Now, I used to do individual meetings with each one, but honestly, like I mentioned earlier, I really highly value my time. So even if, and I don't love wasting people's time obviously, but even if like I just need to talk to one of my VAs and the other 3 ones are listening, it's still just easier because I know that every week at 5 p.m. PST, we're meeting together. But there is something nice about getting the entire team together as well. Now, during these meetings, there's a few things we do. You don't have to do this, but I like to start off the meetings with asking everybody, what was the best part of your last week? Like, what was the best thing you did, and what's one thing you'd want to improve? And I also share. And the reason I do this is so we can all get to know each other on a little bit deeper of a level. Maybe I find out that, one of my VAs, the one thing they're trying to improve is they're trying to eat healthier, and we can support each other. Then we have a scoreboard. And this is another tip, is we have a scoreboard of different objectives, different goals, and I ask them to tell me, for instance, how many videos did you edit last week? How many followers on Instagram did we get? How many collaborations on Instagram did we do? Every single one of my assistants has some kind of number, and we track that number week after week. And if I see that, hey, wait a minute, how come we're only getting 10 new followers on Instagram? I know something's going wrong, and we can try to figure out what's going on. Now, maybe it is Instagram's just not doing as well for some random reason, or maybe that means that I need to look a little bit closer at my virtual assistant and potentially even fire them if they're really slacking off. Another thing we talk about on the weekly meeting is bonuses. So what I personally like to do, and again, you don't have to do this is totally optional, is I like to have some kind of a team bonus. So we're all trying to strive towards some goal. So one of the goals I had that we hit, and I ended up giving all my virtual assistants a month's salary because we hit this goal, is I wanted to start getting on average 2,000 views within the first week of releasing a YouTube video. At the time when I set this goal, I was only getting 200 views on average. And within about 4 months, went from 200 views within the first week to 2,000 views, which honestly is a really big deal for me. It means a lot it helped make me a lot more money, and I want to spread that with my team. And I think it motivated my team as well because we all were dedicated towards the same goal. Now I want to get into the tools that I use in just a second, but the last tip and trick I have is, if possible, meet them in person. I met 2 of my virtual assistants a few months ago. I flew out to Manila to meet them, and it really helped solidify our bond. It helped me get to know them better. It was kind of nice to go to the Philippines, to go to Manila, and to actually explore the city. And I'm going to share some of that footage with you later in this video as well. But if you can meet someone in person, there's just the connection's a lot stronger. Another thing that you could think about is, if you and your team do really well, maybe having retreats, maybe flying all of them out. One of my goals is to fly all my team out to Bali at some point, and we'll all hang out together, or to do a retreat somewhere in Asia and get together as a team and set new goals and new priorities. And just because your assistant is a virtual assistant doesn't mean they have to be forever. Maybe that could be a fun goal for you as well, is to have this goal to go out there and meet them in person. The first tool I have with you, which I've already talked about, is onlinejobs.ph. And they are not paying me to make this video, though I do get a kickback if you use my link to sign up. So please, if you're enjoying this video, use my link to sign up if you do decide to go with them. But obviously there's other options out there as well. But I think this is, before I was even on YouTube, before I was doing any of this stuff, I used and I hired my first virtual assistant from onlinejobs.ph. And I've had a ton of success and been very happy with them. Now, that being said, I have hired some virtual assistants that just didn't work out, and I can talk about that later in this video. But onlinejobs.ph is by far the most important tool for working with virtual assistants. The next one is Hubstaff. So I use Hubstaff to track the time that my virtual assistants work for me. So they'll say, hey, I worked for 20 hours a week. Now, some people will just trust their virtual assistants. I'm maybe a little bit more cynical, and this tool is really nice because as soon as one of the assistants starts work, they'll hit the start button, and when they're done or taking a break, they'll hit stop. Now, one important thing about this tool is it'll take random screenshots of your virtual assistant's screen so you can make sure that they're actually doing what they were supposed to do. Now, I did at one point hire a virtual assistant, and I caught them charging time to me while they were working for someone else. And I saw that they were doing this multiple times. And I have a zero tolerance policy for that. And I tell my virtual assistants from the beginning, that's stealing from me. If I catch you charging time and you're not working for me, that's the same as stealing money out of my wallet. I'm not gonna give you a warning, you're automatically fired. Now, if I think maybe it was a mistake, sure, obviously I'd give them a warning. In this case, I knew it was not a mistake, and Hubstaff helped me out a lot. Now, for me personally, I do not check the screenshots that often. The only time I ever check screenshots personally is if I give a task to a VA, and let's say I think the task should take 10 hours, and they took 40 hours to complete it, I'll go check the screenshots and say, why did this take so long? Now, usually what ends up happening is I check the screenshots and I say to myself, oh, actually that task was more complicated than I thought. Sometimes I catch them doing things wrong, like they're not doing it in the right way, and I explain to them, hey, there's an easier way to do this. And obviously sometimes I catch them messing around, doing work that's not related to what we're doing. So Hubstaff, I think it's about $5 a month for one VA, $15 a month for 3 VAs. I've got a 10% discount link down below. 100% worth it. It also makes it very easy because it's black and white on how much you should pay your VAs. Because they say, I work 40 hours, and you can prove it in the thing that they actually worked as long as they said. But basically what I do is I tell my virtual assistants how much they make per hour, and if they want to work more hours, they'll make more money. If they want to work less hours, they can make less money. The next tool is LastPass, and LastPass is crucial when working with virtual assistants. It allows you to share passwords with your assistant, but the passwords are encrypted, so they're not able to steal your password. And if you ever need to fire your virtual assistant, all you have to do is uncheck them from LastPass, and they lose access to everything. And the reason this is so amazing is because you can give them passwords to things that are very sensitive, and as soon as, if you for some reason stop trusting them, within one click, you can get rid of them from access to everything. Now in the past, if you wanted to give them access to 10 different things, you'd have to go in and change all 10 of those passwords, and that could be very time consuming and annoying for you. So LastPass is a great way to give access to all your different passwords to your virtual assistant without having to worry whether or not you can trust them. PayPal is another tool I use, and PayPal is how I personally pay all my virtual assistants. It makes it very easy, and there is a $5 transaction fee, and I personally just pay for that. So, if I owe my virtual assistant $300, it's gonna end up costing me $305, but they lose a little bit of money in the conversion to PHP as well. That's the Filipino peso. But overall, PayPal is a great tool. Dropbox is another tool. And I use Dropbox when trying to share larger files, especially with my video editors, because I will sync all the different video files. I'll just put them in Dropbox. My video editors will get them. I also use Dropbox to give new tasks to my virtual assistants, or at least I used to mostly in the past. I don't do this quite as much as I used to, but basically I have a screen recorder set up. So if I'm gonna give a new task to my assistant, I'll screen record myself doing it first, showing them how to do it. And then when I stop the screen recording, it goes into Dropbox, and then it syncs into my VA's Dropbox folder. They can watch it, and then they can go do the task. However, when sharing documents like Word documents or Excel documents, things like that, I don't like to use Dropbox because there's a lot of issues that can come. Like maybe if two of you guys, if you and your VA are editing at the same time, it won't work. What I do instead is use Google Docs and Google Sheets. And Google Docs and Google Sheets is the best tool out of all these tools in my opinion, and it's free. Another tool that I use that's very important, very helpful is Slack. And Slack is one of those things, if you've never used before, at first it doesn't seem like it would be that helpful. Like when I first heard about it, I didn't think that this was something I need, but now that I've been using it for a while, it is amazingly helpful. I highly recommend checking it out and trying it out Even if you don't think at first glance that it sounds like it's something that would be helpful, trust me, it is. So the way Slack works is it's almost like a giant chat room that you and your virtual assistant or your virtual assistant team can use. And it's very, very helpful if you have a team of people. And the reason for that is you can have conversations with multiple teammates. They can all put in information. And one of the features of Slack that's so helpful is there's different channels. And the different channels are about like different topics. And you can do direct messages just with specific assistants of yours or specific people that are in Slack, or you can have a channel where multiple people can go. So an example of this would be, I have a channel for my thumbnails. And what I do is in the channel thumbnails, I'll put a comment and I'll start a thread in there, and it might be titled, how to hire a virtual assistant. So there'll be a thread for this video thumbnail, for instance. And within there, me and my virtual assistants will reply back and forth, and they'll show me the first version of a thumbnail, and then I'll say, no, make these changes, and they'll make the changes, and so on and so on. And that way it allows me to organize. I might have 5 different thumbnails, 5 different videos that I'm doing thumbnails for, but each one has its different area, versus having to send out emails and having to do reply all and all this kind of stuff. And I have a lot of different channels. I have another channel, we review the videos, and same idea, I put a comment and we review each individual video. Another one, actually a very important channel for me, is the tasks channel. So there's one channel where I will give tasks to my different virtual assistants. And the way I do this is, I'll say @Dan, here is a P2 task, and I give all my tasks a priority system, P0, P1, P2, and P3, and that basically allows them to know how long they have to get it done, like what is the priority of this task. P0 being the highest priority, like it needs to get done immediately, and P3 means take your time, there's no rush on this. So I'll say @Dan, P0 priority, or let's say a P2 priority, which means you have 1 week to get it done, and then I'll explain the task. Now the next tip for Dan is, if you can get that task done within 24 hours, basically by my next business day, if you can get the task done, all he has to do is get the task done and reply there saying, hey, I got it done. But if it's gonna take him more than 24 hours to get the task done, he adds it to Asana. So Asana is a project management system, and there's Asana and there's also Trello. Both these are pretty similar, but I highly recommend using one of them. And why it's so helpful is you give your assistants tasks and they put it in there, and it allows you to track like what is the status of this task. And that way there's a centralized location where every time you give your assistant a task, you can go check and say, hey, what's the status on this? And this is so important. I constantly have ideas for new tasks for my virtual assistants. And if we didn't have some way to track it, I'd forget what task I give to them. And so this is a way for me to track it and make sure that they're accountable. So this brings me to the rules with working with virtual assistants. And one of the first rules is you need to have some kind of a hierarchy, some kind of a ranking system on how important different tasks are. And for me, daily tasks are pretty much always most important. But then there's a P0 task, P1, P2, and P3. P0 task means do this immediately. The first thing you do when you start working, I want you to work on this. It's so important. P1 means you have 24 hours to do it. Daily tasks for me, I'll explain that in a second, but daily tasks means they need to get done every day, no matter what. Pretty much no matter what. Unless I give you a P0 task or a P1 task, those take priority over the daily task, but otherwise daily tasks need to get done. P2 and P3 tasks for me, a P2 task means you have 1 week to get it done, and a P3 task means you have about a month to get it done. Honestly, P3 tasks are just basically take as much time as you need. Like once you get everything else done that's important, here's a task that it's when I have ideas that like one day I would like to do this thing, but it's not a priority. Those are P3 tasks. And another rule for working with virtual assistants, another tip, another trick basically is have what I call catch-all tasks. And a catch-all task is once your VAs are done with everything else, you want to give them a task that they'll never really ever be able to get done. So this will help you out because one of my biggest fears when I first hired a virtual assistant is what if they run out of work and like they're just sitting there charging me money and they're not doing anything. So an example of a catch-all task would be go on to Google, go on to Yelp, find every single small gym in the United States and get the name of the gym, the email, get the website, get the phone number. And the reason I collect this information for my main company, Performance Nut Butter, is because we send out emails to this company. We'll send out emails to small gyms and we'll spotlight them on our blog. We'll do an interview with them, put it on our blog, and this is a task that my virtual assistant does. Basically, if my VA runs out of everything else to do, we start this thing, and it's a marketing thing. And for me, it's worth it. It's definitely something that we make money from, but at the same time, there's usually other tasks that are more important. And just to give you a quick example of this task, basically my virtual assistant will email the gym saying, hey, do you want to be spotlighted on our blog? And it's free marketing for them. So most of the time they'll respond yes to my virtual assistant, and then my virtual assistant will send them over the questions. They'll respond with the answers to the question. My virtual assistant will write an email or write an article, post it on our website, format it, do all that kind of stuff. Then email the gym again saying, hey, it's live. Here's a link to it. Do you mind sharing it with everyone? The gym will share it with all their customers because it looks good on them. It's like, hey guys, we were featured in this blog. The customers will go to our website and will check out our website, and maybe they buy stuff, or maybe they just realize that this product out there exists. So it's a way for us to market our product, and it's 100% done by my virtual assistant. And this is an example of a catch-all task in me. Now I could hire a virtual assistant just to do this, but it's not super high priority. I do also want to mention the daily tasks. So that's another tip, trick for working with your virtual assistant, is they should have daily tasks. What are the things that you are doing every day? What are the things you're doing every day that you don't need to be doing, that are repetitive, that are boring, that are just something that you could train someone else to do? An example of this might be dealing with customer service for Performance Nut Butter. Customer service emails, 99% of them are completely repetitive. Basically, it's not worth my time to respond. If someone says, hey, I don't like Performance Nut Butter, I want a refund, I let my virtual assistant handle it. I don't need to go deal with that because it's the same thing over and over again. Another daily task might be following, liking, and commenting people on Instagram. It's pretty boring, it's pretty repetitive. My assistant can do that. It's not something I need to do. There's a number of different daily tasks, but I would highly recommend having repeat tasks that your virtual assistant is going to be doing every day. And as I mentioned, for me, I find that those should take priority over almost all tasks except for the P0 and the P1 tasks. And when your virtual assistant is first starting out with you, if this is your first time hiring a virtual assistant, I highly recommend having them send you an email every single day, say 3 different things. What I did today, so they'll email you saying what they did, what issues they ran into, and any way that you can help them out. So a typical email might be like, today I worked on articles for the blog, I worked on thumbnails. One issue I ran into is someone asked this question that I didn't know how to answer. How can you help me out answer this question? And so this way, you know every single day what your assistant is doing, and if they run into an issue, you know about it. Because a lot of virtual assistants I've found, a lot of people in general, they kind of want to sweep problems under the rug. But this kind of forces them to say, hey, here's an issue I ran into, let's try to figure it out together. And it also forces them to ask for your help. A lot of times, assistants, people in general, especially people in the Philippines, they don't want to ask for help. It's kind of almost, I think, embarrassing in their culture. I could be wrong on this, but there's some element of like, oh man, there's a problem, I don't want to talk about it. And this is a good way for every day for you to check in with them and see what kind of issues they're having. Another tip and trick I learned is anytime you email your virtual assistant, you want them to respond, you should have them respond within 24 hours. So if I give a task to my virtual assistant, either in Asana or via email, I want them to respond to me saying, noted, just saying that they got it. And now a funny thing about in the Philippines, they're gonna call you sir or ma'am. So usually when I send an email out to my assistants, they'll say noted sir, and it just allows me to know that they received the email. And the reason I came up with this rule is because in the past, I would email my assistants, a week would go by and I'm like, hey, how come that thing never got done? And they'd just be like, oh, I forgot about it. So this is a way for you to guarantee that they know about it. And because if you email them and they don't respond, you can say, hey, what happened? Why didn't you ever respond to this email? Now, here's one of the most important tips, tricks, and one of the most important rules for working with virtual assistants is you need to have some kind of a strike system. You need to have some kind of methodology where you know when it's time to fire a virtual assistant. Because at some point, if you work with virtual assistants long enough, you may have to fire someone. And the way mine works is there's 5 strikes and you're out. And it's very lenient. And it's 5 strikes within 1 month. But some of the strikes are pretty easy to get. For instance, if I send you an email and you don't respond within 24 hours, that's a strike. Now, obviously it's 5 strikes, so there's room for you to learn there. Same thing if I give you a P0 task and you don't do it within 24 hours, or a P1 task you don't do it within 24 hours, that's a strike. If you don't do your daily task, that's a strike. And like I said, 5 strikes within 1 month. And sometimes if it's a brand new virtual assistant, maybe I'll say, hey, I'm not gonna fire you right away, but it is one of those things that if I see them repeatedly doing it again and again, it's time that they get fired. And you do need some kind of system in place so that it's black and white whether you should fire someone. And then obviously if they break the rules and you still want to keep them, you can make an exception. You can say, hey, it's an exception just this one time. And I do have a link down below with my strike system. And I do have a link down below with all the rules I have for working with virtual assistants. And this is what I give. This is one of the things I give my virtual assistants from day one. So they know very clearly what to expect out of working with me. And I have them read that because I'm like, look, these are the things that I've learned. I've been working with virtual assistants for probably like 4 years now. And these are the things I've learned, like some of the biggest pain points for me. And one of the biggest pain points for me is when I give tasks and they don't get done. And that really annoys me. So the strike system is a way for me to say, hey, here's a punishment. You get a strike and don't do it again. Now, it's not a severe punishment. I'm not docking their pay or anything like that, though that is one thing you could do. You could say, if you get 5 strikes, I dock your pay. If that happens 2 months or 3 months in a row or whatever, I fire you. You can come up with your own system, but this is the system I use. So now I want to answer some of the most frequently asked questions. Then I'm going to show you a full-length interview where I actually interview a virtual assistant so you can see what my style is like. Then I'm going to ask some questions to my virtual assistant. As I mentioned, I flew to the Philippines and I was asking my virtual assistant questions. Some things like, how do you feel about the money you make? You know, is it enough money basically? And he answered very honestly. I also asked him, what do you think when you see me spending $100 a night on a hotel and that's like a week's worth of salary? For my virtual assistant, that's a week's worth of salary. And just some other like random interesting questions. Also asked him, what is it like to live in Manila? What's your favorite food? And at the very end of this video, I'll give you a little bit of a tour of Manila, a little bit of a tour of the Philippines in general from my trip out there. One of the first questions I get asked is, how much should you pay a virtual assistant? And my typical answer is around $2 to $3 an hour. Realistically, I think $2 to $5 an hour. If you want to get someone that's very skilled, very specialized at a certain thing, it might be closer to that $4 to $5 a range. If you're looking for someone that's just going to be doing boring, repetitive things where you can clearly define what the task is, and it's just, hey, I want you, like I mentioned before, I want you to go find every single gym within the United States and get the name of their website, the name of the company, their email, and their phone number. That's something pretty repetitive and boring. That's gonna be closer to that $2 range. If you can get lucky, you might even be able to find someone for $1.50, $1.75 that would do tasks like that. And there's an interesting thing. The more money you spend, the higher chance you're gonna have someone of really high quality. And I recommend taking the time to find a rock star. Don't settle with someone that you think's mediocre. Now there's 2 different ways to do this. One thing is, if you use my system for hiring a virtual assistant, you can for sure find a bargain priced person that's gonna be a rock star, that's gonna be absolutely amazing. It might take a little bit more time, especially if you're looking for the bargain price, but if you use the system and you're willing to pay a little bit more, you'll find it within a week. You'll find a virtual assistant. I'd say expect to take 1 to 2 weeks to find your assistant. If you really wanna be specific and you really wanna take a long time to find someone really amazing, you can do that at a bargain. I generally, like in my early days, I'd spend longer looking for someone and make sure I found the right fit at a bargain price, where now I don't mind spending a little bit more money because my time's so valuable. I don't want to spend a lot of time looking for the perfect person at a discounted rate. I'd rather spend a little bit more money, know that I'm getting someone that's not gonna leave my company for a different job. So if you're looking for a really good English speaker, it might be $3, $4, $5 an hour. If you're looking for someone to do higher level things, it might be closer to that $5 an hour. But generally, if this is the first virtual assistant you've ever hired, you're looking for someone that's like a generalist, think about the $2 to $3 an hour range. And another question I get is, how do I pay my virtual assistants? And I'll talk about 2 things. The quick answer is PayPal, but generally speaking, I tell my virtual assistants, you make X amount of money per month, and then I divide it by 173 hours, because that's the typical number of hours in a working month. So let's just give a really quick example. $350 a month is the salary. Divide that by 173, it's approximately $2 an hour. And I have my virtual assistants, they get paid per hour. So if they wanna work 80 hours a week, they can make $160 a week. If there's some weeks where they can only work 20 hours a week, I pay them less. And I think that's fair. The more you work, the more money you should make. The less you work, the less money you should make. Now, I'll also talk about, actually, I forgot to mention this in my notes. I'll talk about bonuses and all that kind of stuff as well in a second. But one of the big things is I have my virtual assistants send me an email on the 1st and the 15th of every month saying how many hours they've worked in that last period of time. And I have them calculate for me how much I should pay them. Then I have them send me a bill in PayPal. Now, I don't check this all the time. I usually, I've built enough trust with my virtual assistants that I don't feel the need to check it all the time. Though I am gonna be changing that. I'm gonna have one of my assistants start checking the other assistants to make sure that there's no funny business going on. And then in PayPal, there's a $5 fee. You don't have to use PayPal. I find PayPal to be the easiest. In the past, I used a company called RIA, R-I-A. That was the first thing I ever used. It's like a wire transfer service, but PayPal is a lot easier. I would require, if I were you, I'd require your assistants to go through PayPal because it's just, they send me the invoice and it's a click of a button. I just click pay and I think confirm and it's done. It's nice and easy. One thing that you should keep in mind as well is there's something called the 13th month. So at the end of the year, you're supposed to pay, I think it's right before Christmas or something like that, you're supposed to pay 1 month's worth of salary to your virtual assistant. Now it's up to you. You can negotiate with your assistant whether or not you want to do this. I don't pay, for instance, for sick days. I very much am, you get paid when you work. You can take time off if you want to. Please let me know ahead of time. And that's up to you. But in my opinion, sick days don't make sense because if you're not getting work done for me, I don't think you should get paid. I think that's fair, but again, negotiate with your virtual assistant. Everyone is different in that. I also get asked a lot, how many hours per week does my virtual assistant work for me? And as I said, I have 4 virtual assistants. They're all full-time. I only personally recommend hiring full-time. Well, that's not true. I recommend hiring full-time assistants, but if you only need someone for 10 hours a week, start with 10 hours a week. If you only need 20 hours a week, start with 20 hours a week. But the reason I like a full-time assistant, and I actually tell my assistants that I don't want you working for anyone else except for me. If you need more money, work more hours. And the reason for that is I want them fully focused and all their attention on this one business. If your assistant is working 2 different jobs, if they're kind of hedging their bet, that means they're not fully in the door. If they're half in, half out the door, they're just not as dedicated to your business, and I don't want to deal with that. I want someone that they feel the obligation to be fully invested and fully present. And also, I noticed for myself, if I have multiple projects, I'm spread too thin. And same thing goes with my assistants, my employees. I don't want them spread too thin. I don't want them, I tell them, hey, this needs to get done within 24 hours. And they have another boss that says, no, this task needs to get done within 24 hours. And then they have to decide between the 2 of us. So I tell my virtual assistants, I only want to hire you if you're full-time and I want you to be dedicated. But if you're nervous, if this is the first time you ever hired a virtual assistant, you can find someone that can do 10 hours a week. And maybe they have kids that they're taking care of and they only have 10 hours a week, or maybe they do have other jobs. Another issue people ask me a lot is how do you track their time and how do you trust them? Obviously, I use Hubstaff to track their time, very black and white, very binary. And as far as trust, I don't think you need to have a lot of trust because with Hubstaff, it takes the random screenshots and you can check in on them. And if they do screw up, you can fire them. I mean, it's emotionally, it might be difficult, but it's very easy to fire someone. And even emotionally, it's a little bit easier to fire someone in the Philippines, to be honest, that you've never actually met in person than it is. I've had both in-person employees in the United States and virtual assistants, and it's a lot easier to fire a virtual assistant. Now, don't get me wrong, I never want to do it, but I've had virtual assistants that have acted up and they, like I mentioned, someone cheated me out of money. They were charging time when they shouldn't have. And as soon as I caught them, I'm like, you're done, fired. There's no emotional attachment there. That being said, generally speaking, I completely trust my virtual assistants. My main assistant, Dan, I would trust him with my bank account. He's built up that much trust with me over time. So it's up to you, but using Hubstaff, I don't think you need to have a ton of trust. And speaking of trust, as far as giving your virtual assistants passwords, I would highly, highly recommend LastPass. I'll put a link down below to that. I think it's like $13 or $12 a year, and it allows you to give all your virtual assistants passwords. And the family plan, the way it basically works is you have all your passwords and it saves it for you in the Chrome browser. And then you can set your virtual assistants to have a separate login. And they put the plugin, they log into their plugin on their browser, and it automatically fills in the password field, and your assistants can't see the password. So that way, if you ever have to fire a virtual assistant, all you have to do is delete them from LastPass. You don't have to go through and change all your passwords. Because for instance, I give my assistants access to my Instagram, to my email, to my website, to affiliate accounts, all these different things. And if I were to fire them normally, in the old days, I'd have to change 20 different passwords, which is a huge pain in the ass. But now with LastPass, I just click one button, I delete them from my LastPass account, and they lose access to everything. I also already mentioned somewhat how to give your virtual assistants tasks. You can either send them an email, in Asana, I have the task channel, and you can write out the steps for the task. Or if it's something a little bit more complicated, you can do a screen recording and then sync it with Dropbox so they can watch it. Now, when I first started, I would only give my virtual assistants tasks by doing the screen recording thing, because to be honest, I didn't trust them enough. Nowadays, I trust them a lot more. I might say more general, like it used to be that I'd only give them step-by-step instructions saying, do this, then do this, then do this. Or now I might say, hey, let's start an affiliate program. Do some research, figure out how to start an affiliate program, and contact, I'll give them more general outlines, not as step-by-step, and I don't mind writing it out. And the benefit of being able to write it out is that you can be on your laptop at a coffee shop, where screen recordings, you need to be somewhere where it's okay, you can get the volume, the audio, and all that kind of stuff. I also get asked a lot about what hours do your virtual assistants work? And for me personally, I tell them work whenever you want. I don't care. If you want to work 4 hours a day and Monday through Sunday, you can do that. If you want to work nighttime your time, daytime your time, it doesn't matter. Now, some people I've talked to, some of my friends, they actually make their virtual assistants stay up at night and work the same time as like American time zones. I don't have them do, I want them I might not pay as much as some people, but I try to be a better boss by saying, work when you want, where you want, like I don't even care. Now, you could be a little bit more strict, that's completely up to you, but I generally speaking say, let them work on the time frames that's up to them. Now, one of the things I have started to do is I ask them to give me a schedule. About what time are you going to be working every day? That way, are they working from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day their time, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day their time? That way I know that if I go online at certain times, there's likely to be some overlap. Now, usually they're working, most of the time that they're working is while I'm sleeping, but 7 o'clock at night, for instance, or 5 o'clock at night, we can get together. And I don't know if I've already mentioned this, but I'll mention it again. One thing, for instance, is 5 o'clock every Monday, we have that weekly meeting. And so I know 5 o'clock that day, that's like the only time I ever make them show up at a certain time. The rest of it, it's up to them, but I ask them to post their schedule in Slack. I have a channel called Schedule, I think it is. And it basically, every day I want them to post in there what times they're planning on working that day, just in case another assistant needs to get a hold of them and have some kind of conversation with them, or if I need to get a hold of them and have a Skype conversation with them, I can. And the last question I get often is about raises. How often should you give your virtual assistant raises? Now, I'm not an expert at this. I think maybe every 6 months to a year, you should reevaluate with your different assistants, see how good of a job they're doing, but you can always surprise them. Like if you have an assistant that's doing really amazing, then you can surprise them and give them a little bit of a raise if you see that they basically ask yourself, how much am I paying this person? Are they worth that much, or are they worth more? How sad would you be if they left you? You know what? And I've had some assistants where if they left me, I could have cared less. And I currently have some assistants where if they left me, it'd be really sad. So do your own research and do what feels good for you. But now I want to show you a full-length interview with one of my virtual assistants. So first off, I guess, welcome to the interview. Tell me a little bit about your last job and what you did there.
Okay, actually, sir, I have a part-time job right now.
Okay.
It's not big. It's not that major. I am teaching Chinese students English, basic English.
Okay.
But before that, I am working for Philippine Airlines, a well-known airline here in the Philippines. I was a quality assurance specialist. Well, what I did was monitor calls from our agents in the reservation side,
Okay.
and check whether they adhere to the standards that the company set.
Cool.
And not just calls, but also emails.
Okay.
We also check the emails if they are also adhering to the quality set by the company.
And how come you're no longer with that job?
Okay, the sad reason behind that is my father died
Okay.
last 2014, and because of that, I would like to spend more time with my family.
Okay.
And I decided to have an online job here at home.
Okay. Fair. And how many hours a week are you currently teaching Chinese? Or I mean,
Okay.
teaching to Chinese students?
Well, it's a part-time job, so I get to choose how many hours I spend in teaching. I can teach up to 12 hours a day, up to 1 hour per
Okay.
day.
This job, if you do get this job, how many hours a week are you looking to work?
Well, I'm looking for a full-time job, so I'm expecting an 8-hour day job.
Okay. So what do you want to learn from this job? Like, what do you want to hopefully get from this job ultimately? Obviously a paycheck, but other than a paycheck?
Yes. Well, I look at the website of your company, and it's I'm seeing this is a fashion industry,
Mhm.
obviously. So I would like to venture into a new industry
Okay.
because I'm from the airline industry. I want to learn more, learn more in the fashion industry
Mhm.
because I think this industry has a promising future because people nowadays love to wear beautiful clothes. They want to look beautiful and they want to look nice,
Okay.
and that's it.
Okay. So I assume, do you own your own computer? I assume this is your computer here?
Yes, this is my computer. So,
And you obviously have access to the internet. Okay. When would you be able to start work if I did hire you?
as soon as possible, sir.
Okay. Okay. Have you ever worked for a foreign employer before?
um, Actually, Philippine Airlines was owned by a Chinese by owned by Chinese, and I think that's and my current job is also owned by a Chinese, so it's
Okay. So no, I
a
assume
big
no American or like no English
um
speaker.
well I had a job before, but it's for a short time. I think two months.
Okay.
I managed his Instagram account for
Oh, okay.
some time. He's an Australian, so
What
I
happened with that job?
well the Australian was broke.
Oh, okay.
He did not continue with this online job because it was not feasible. It's
What
not yeah.
what was the name of the business? Or do you remember?
Well, the name of it, he is a writer,
Okay.
and he made a book actually, and that book was posted in Amazon,
Okay.
and he made an Instagram account quoting and posting quotes from the book, and unfortunately the book didn't had good sales, so
Oh, okay.
he just stopped it. Mhm.
Do you have, I mean, can you send me a link to his Instagram account or like what his ID is or whatever?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's not. It didn't. I just made images
Oh, okay.
for his. Let me just check. The name of the book is the name of the company is Successwise.
Success
And
wise?
yes, Successwise. I'll just write it down. Sorry. I think he deleted all the images.
Oh, really? Okay. All right, let's see what else I got. I got a couple other questions. How fast is your internet connection? Do you know offhand?
As of now, I have 2 Mbps,
Okay.
so it's a bit slow. But if ever I get hired, sir, I am willing to upgrade it to
Oh,
a higher connection or a higher speed.
okay. Where in the Philippines are you?
Manila, sir. Manila.
Manila. Okay. And I think I don't remember. Did you say you have some Photoshop and video editing skills, or let's see?
Okay. Well, I can rate it if you want.
Sure.
For Photoshop, from 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, I think I can say I have an 8. I can be an 8 there.
That's pretty good.
For Premiere, well, I used it thrice, so I can say 5.
Okay.
Well,
For using it
and
twice, a 5 is pretty good. Like,
and because I'm using the Windows, what's the window? The movie maker. So I think it's the same. So
yeah.
I can say it's a 5. And,
so one issue, just a quick side note. One issue I've ran into in the past with VAs is when their internet goes out. So when the internet, because I know that's a problem in the Philippines. If the internet goes out, do you have any other options? Or what happens? Like, let's say the internet were to go out for a few days. Would that mean that you can't work, or?
That happened to me maybe 3 months ago when I was teaching, and there was a typhoon here in the Philippines. Sorry, in Manila.
Yeah.
And what I did is I rushed to a mall nearby. There's a mall nearby. 10-minute drive because I have a motorcycle. And when that mall always has internet and electricity, so that won't be a problem if there will be an outage in electricity and in internet. So that's my go-to place whenever there's a problem.
Awesome. All right, so here's kind of a random question for you.
Sure.
If you could have a conversation with anybody, living or dead, who would that person be?
Conversation. Well, I would like to talk to Hitler.
What? Why?
Yeah, and I want to question him. Why did you kill the Jews?
Okay.
I want to question him. Why did he do that?
Okay.
And, I will also say to him the consequences that he did.
Are you a big history buff? Do you like to read a lot of history, or?
Not that much.
No. Okay.
Maybe a little.
A little bit. Gotcha. All right. Last question. How much money are you looking to make? I do want to hire someone full time. So how much are you looking to make?
Let me see. Well, I'm earning before. I'm earning 15,000 pesos.
Okay.
So maybe I can go lower than that, since I'm new in this industry and I don't have any idea with the products yet. So I'm willing to start at the bottom.
Okay.
That's what I can say.
Okay. Do you have a PayPal account, or do you have PayPal, or what would be the best way for me to pay you, I guess?
Well, I have a PayPal account.
Okay.
I also have a bank account.
Yeah.
Well, you can choose what. And if you have a payment term that I don't have, I can get it.
Okay. PayPal is preferred. Okay. So what I'm gonna do? I liked you. I liked the interview. Actually, just as a side note, how many other companies are you interviewing with right now, or have you interviewed with, if any?
Actually, I sent a lot of resumes with other companies, and I think you're the second company that replied.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you had a good message. I liked it. So what I'm gonna do is I have a sample project, and it shouldn't take you hopefully too long. But basically, I think it should be about an hour's worth of work, and this is just so I can test to see, are you good at following instructions? Is the quality of everything good? It's pretty simple. I'm gonna put a link to it here in the chat. And that was one of the virtual assistants that I hired. I do have a full hour-long video of every single virtual assistant I interviewed in the process of trying to hire a virtual assistant. I'll put a link to that video down below in the description so you can see what is it like to interview someone that probably shouldn't be hired versus what is it like to interview someone that I think is worth hiring. And now I want to show you, as I mentioned, I went to Manila to visit my virtual assistant and I asked him a bunch of different questions and I'll show you that right now. So first off, how was the drive coming down? What part of the city do you live in again?
We live in Quezon City. The traffic is heavy, but our driver managed to find the roads that is not traffic.
And what's it like living in Manila, living in the Philippines? Like, because, you know, obviously most of the people that are going to be watching it are from the States. What's it like living in the Philippines compared to, not that you've ever been to the US, but you've seen a lot of my vlogs. Like, what are some of the big differences?
One of the big differences is the traffic. So if you're working on a corporate setting, the travel time is very difficult. But when I start working with Travis, it's a big difference. I don't have to travel 3 hours just to go to my work. I just wake up and start working.
So the native language in the Philippines is Tagalog, which a lot of the words are the same as in Spanish. And as I mentioned earlier, it's because Spain took over. And right now we're on the, I don't know the name of this wall.
It's called Fort Santiago.
Okay.
And the Spaniards basically built this. I think they made it as their base when they came here in the Philippines. The name of this wall is San Gabriel. Each station has different name.
What's something that you're really proud of about the Philippines? Like, is there something that, you know, all Filipinos are very proud of their home country about?
Whatever problems or hardships that came to us, we always smile. So that's, I think, a trait of a Filipino.
What are some of the top things that people should do if they're visiting Manila or visiting the Philippines in general?
Manila is rich in history. So there are old buildings that you can visit if you're into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And also Manila is near a body of water, so there are a lot of food, seafoods.
What's your favorite food dish? Like, what's your favorite thing to eat?
Sinigang na bangus. In English, that's milkfish.
Milkfish?
Yeah.
Sounds super tasty. What are some other interesting, unique dishes that they have in the Philippines that maybe Americans wouldn't necessarily know right off the top of their head?
It's a duck egg.
Like it's already starting to be born.
Tokneneng is quail eggs with batter.
Okay.
Adobo. Adobo is a chicken dish with soy sauce and vinegar, a staple food here in the Philippines.
Another question I get all the time, and now I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you is, it's obvious it's a lot cheaper to hire someone in the Philippines. And I think sometimes when I tell people, you know, I'm paying, let's say $3 an hour for a VA, they're like, oh, you're taking advantage of these people. How do you feel about like how much you make? I mean, obviously everybody always wants to make more, but how do you feel about how much money you make relative to like a typical job here?
Even though it's, they say it's $3, but here in the Philippines, it's a very big pay. You're like a manager,
and you get to work from home, and you get to work. I mean, a big thing that I do with all my VAs is, for the most part, I don't care when you work. Now Dan does work really hard, and I feel like you're online all the time, which is really nice. But for the most part, with my VAs, I say, hey, you know what? I don't care when you work, just get the work done. And I try to do about 40 hours a week of work. But if you do more, I'll pay you more. If you do less, I'll pay you less. So I have a ton more questions for Dan. We're gonna be asking him what it's like living in the Philippines. But one of the big things is he hired a driver. And that was actually, I wanna point that out, that was something that was really cool. I told him, no, I'll pay for a driver, you know, I'll pay for all the food, everything. And he's like, no, I insist. I want to pay for the driver and pay for basically a car rental. So that says something. That's why I think it's really cool hiring someone from the Philippines. Is there, and Dan's extra like loyal and just great, nice people. Not to flatter you too much, but we're also, so today we're going to be doing a tour of Manila. And along the way, I'm going to be asking him a bunch of questions that I've been dying to know, and it's kind of cool to ask in person. My favorite things to do when going into a new city is to go to the market. My favorite part about going to the markets is all the different foods you get to try. And Adrian's been showing me a lot of the local food. The fish balls, that was the first thing we tried, was delicious.
Quail eggs.
Yeah, fried quail eggs and lychee, which I've had lychee before, but I always enjoy that. Other than that, we've just been walking around the markets, and it's always kind of interesting for me to see how different cultures shop and how they live and like what kind of stuff they buy at the market. A famous dessert in the Philippines is halo-halo. What is halo-halo exactly?
It's beans, sweet beans, jelly, ice, and milk. Yeah. So basically, you will mix it. Halo-halo means mix. So you mix all of it together, and that makes a special dessert.
Nice.
So this one is the halo-halo, and it's a very famous treat for summertime because it's a good refreshment.
One of the big questions I've had, and I'm sure a lot of people wonder about working with their virtual assistants, is what do you think when you see me spending, you know, $60 a night on a hotel, or sometimes even $100 a night on a hotel? When, I mean, that's a lot of money to you. Like, so what do you think about that kind of thing? Because you see sometimes, because doing my bookkeeping, you'll see that I'll go to a dinner that's $100, which is, it's a lot of money. But like, what's your thought process when you see that?
When I heard that you paid $60 a night, that's like a 1 month rent here in the Philippines. So it's very expensive.
So wait, how much do you actually pay for rent? Because $60 for a month of rent seems really cheap. Like what is your rent cost?
Actually, a month we pay $60. So that's a big amount when you just spend it on a night.
Yeah, that is. And so I guess going back to when we were talking about earlier, making, you know, $3 an hour or whatever, I forget exactly how much you make. It's not crazy when you think about the fact that rent is $60. And how much do you think you spend on food in a month?
We spend $100, I think. That's a month.
Okay,
that's
so
a month worth of food
$100
in the Philippines.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. We're gonna go do a little bit more sightseeing right now, and then afterwards, we're meeting up with another VA of mine who happens to live in Manila as well. So excited for that. We're gonna get some dinner together. Now that you're ready to hire a virtual assistant, please use my link down below, click that. I get a small kickback from onlinejobs.ph. It doesn't cost you anything, it's totally free to you, but it helps me out, it helps the channel out. So click that. And if you're new to this channel and you wanna hear about how I actually make money online, I talk about the first 2 years of selling on Amazon FBA in this video right here, including some mistakes I made that cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. So click on that video, I'll see you in the next video, and thanks for watching.